Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Berlioz' Les Troyens, which I saw at the Staatsoper Hamburg. The conductor was Kent Nagano, the production was done by Michael Thalheimer, the sets were done by Olaf Altmann, the costumes were done by Michaela Barth, the lights were handled by Norman Platte, the chorus master was Eberhard Friedrich, the dramaturgy was handled by Johannes Blum, the co-director was Tim Jensen, and the co-conductor was Nathan Brock. I was really excited about this particular production because there were some singers whose careers I've been following for quite some time that starred in this production of Les Troyens, and those were Thorsten Kerl, Anna Markarova, Katja Piewek, Elena Zhidkova, Heather Engebretson, and Andrew Harris. And there was also a slew of singers whose names were completely new to me, and thank goodness I managed to hear them live tonight. Interestingly enough, Catherine Naglestad was supposed to sing the role of Cassandra, but Anna Markarova took over. And another interesting tidbit was Andrew Harris sang the role of the ghost of Hector in the Deutsche Oper Berlin's production of Les Troyens, and here at the Staatsoper Hamburg's production of Les Troyens, he sang the role of the Greek chieftain. I'll get to the singers much later, but first, my thoughts on the production. Overall, I found it to be quite interesting. Because the people behind this production knew that the story took place during the Trojan War, they managed to make the stage quite barren, and it's also quite minimalist in terms of its execution, which is why you also see a lot of the citizens of Troy wearing pine green, army colors, and even a lot of ashy colors to convey the fact that they're also in a war-torn land. Speaking of war-torn land, that's also another thing that the people behind this production also went with. A very barren stage with nothing on there except a lot of walls being here and there, and even a back wall that once it capsizes manages to pour gallons of blood, thus raining upon the stage. And this type of minimalistic approach is actually kind of interesting because you wouldn't think of a lot of scenery or even a lot of fancy costumes when you think of a war-torn land. You would think of a lot of destruction, pain, and just a lot of the aftermaths of chaos once you get to see the people just really trying to rough it up and even trying to get what little they have because of the situations that the war has befallen on them. And it really does play itself well. And speaking of the costumes, aside from the citizens of Troy, who wore a lot of pine green, a lot of ashy colors, the other characters also wore some pretty interesting costumes, like Cassandra's costume, which made her look like she walked out of Lucia de Lammermoor's Mad Scene. But all joking aside, this is supposed to convey the fact that Cassandra has seen a lot of death, war, violence, destruction, and a lot of negative things plaguing her homeland, which is why there's also blood on her arms and hands to convey the fact that she has seen lives being lost. And it's also quite scary to know that once Cassandra makes the prediction of Korebe's oncoming death, there's also a blood stain on his rib cage, which is also quite frightening, but also conveys the message that Korebe is going to have his life taken away. So this whole play of blood, death, and a lot of the barren landscapes found in the first act of Les Troyens is not only quite mesmerizing, but it's quite raw in its execution. The second part of Les Troyens, which takes place in Carthage, does the minimalistic approach as well, but they also manage to add in some really interesting and very gorgeous effects. The most striking one definitely has to be the love duet between Didon and Aîné, which is Nuit d'ivresse et extase, in which we see rose petals falling from the heavens once they continue singing their duet and once the lighting manages to be a redder shade. which also conveys the passion that these two have, that even though it's hidden, manages to really come out loud as soon as their duet comes into fruition. And the petals just make it absolutely lovely. And Didon's costume, while not completely regal, is still really sleek and gorgeous enough for any singer who sings the role of Didon. And I thought that Elena Zhidkova looked really, really gorgeous in that outfit. So overall, even though one would expect a lot of scenery, a lot of really gorgeous costumes, and a lot of all of this pomp to be present in any production of Les Troyens, I still have to give loads of credit to the people of this production who managed to really find the rawness and the overall reality of a war-torn land and really put it into fruition. I thought these guys managed to do a really fine job, and they managed to really move the story along with their craft. Speaking of story, the music was also intact, but there were some noticeable cuts in the music, most especially with Cassandra's Malheureux Roi, and also the cut of Gloire à toi, Didon, which is also one of my most favorite chorus numbers of Les Troyens. But despite those cuts, it was still a very fine experience from beginning to end. And now we get to the singers, starting off with our main hero, Aine, sung by the ever-fabulous German Heldentenor, Thorsten Kerl. I have followed this particular Heldentenor's career for quite some time, and I thought he managed to give every single portrayal on stage a lot of breath, a lot of life, and a great amount of stentorian vivacity that he was just quite fine all around. And even though there are times he does manage to struggle here and there, his endurance shines brilliantly. And I thought he did a very wonderful job portraying the role of Aine. He was able to make him quite heroic, but at the same time really noble and quite dashing. And he's also quite fatherly to his son Ascania, played by Heather Engebretson. But more than anything, his vocal assets were at their absolute prime, and he was still a very fine singer from beginning to end. And he managed to show a lot of strength, endurance, and stamina, which is an absolute plus for a Heldentenor like him. Even though Aine is the main hero of the opera, I feel like he's outshined by the two leading ladies, Cassandra and Didon. Let's start off with Cassandra, sung by Anna Markarova. I've mainly heard about this singer through her name, and once I saw her repertoire, I was completely amazed. She not only sings the high dramatic soprano roles of Aida, Abigail, and Lady Macbeth, but also mezzo roles like Carmen and Eboli, and even deeper mezzo roles like Princess Clarice, which I found really, really interesting. And she is what I can consider to be a falcon soprano, any singer who can manage to sing roles from the dramatic soprano and even the high dramatic mezzo-soprano repertoire. This is the first time I've seen her live, and it was a really strong impression that she managed to make on stage. First of all, I really love the full bodied tone of her voice. It has that really rich and creamy timbre, but at the same time it's backed up with a good amount of metal. And her vocal assets were at their absolute prime, and she just really knew how to pace herself effectively with a grand voice like Signora Markarova's. She was a very fine singer, and even though she may not be a very terrific actress, I thought that her artistry as a singer shone magnificently. She was able to pace herself really, really well, and her rendition of Malheureux Roi was really, really well done. And that death scene that she had was really, really striking. So overall, it was a great job that Madame Markarova did as Cassandra, and I would really love to hear more of this particular soprano. Then we have Didon, sung by Elena Zhidkova. I've also heard about this mezzo's name for quite some time, and I've seen a couple of clips of her on YouTube, and I thought that she has a very supple, gorgeous, and a very versatile, dramatic mezzo-soprano voice. It's very pliable and it shows no signs of cracking whatsoever. I really love the timbre of her voice. It's rich and creamy, but at the same time, quite piercing in a lot of the middle and high notes. And she is very, very striking on stage. She has a very sleek figure and she just looks very heavenly. She managed to navigate Didon's music with a sense of athleticism and a sense of great musicianship, which was an absolute plus on Elena Zhidkova's part. And at that rate, I would really love to see more performances starring Elena Zhidkova because she's been a mezzo I've been following for quite some time, mostly through YouTube clips, and I can definitely say that Elena Zhidkova was absolutely excellent as Didon. Kartal Karagedic's Koreb was really noble and quite youthful. He has a very fine timbre to his voice. It's quite full and it has that youthfulness that managed to bloom throughout the entire orchestra. Yes, I would have loved to have a fuller sounding baritone voice, but his musicianship and his overall nobility on stage managed to make him shine in his own special way, and I would love to see more performances of him in the near future. Aline Ansa was a name I've heard of for quite some time, mostly because he has been a main player at the Staatsoper Hamburg, and when I heard him singing the role of Panthea, his voice was really well tuned. It's a very fine instrument and it's quite rich in some registers, but more than anything, it has that dashing, youthful quality. And he has a very bright future ahead of him. So here's to Mr. Ansa singing a lot of great roles in the near future, and I would really love to see his career build and build and build because he has a very great future. He's still quite young, but I can definitely tell that through perseverance and through really polishing his craft, I can definitely see him being in a lot of really great roles, and I could definitely see this gentleman have a great international career. He has a very fine voice, and he was also a very dashing performer. Then we go to Vladimir Baikov, who sang the role of Narbal, whose voice was quite steely, and it's also quite typical of any Slavic opera singer, having that round and rich timbre, and also some of the ways he managed to pronounce certain vowels. It's quite in evidence with how he sang the role of Narbal, and he managed to really give this role a lot of dignity, a lot of strength, and just a good amount of poise to make Narbal stand out in his own special way. Heather Engebretson was totally ideal in the role of Ascania. I definitely love her petite figure in this role, as she was able to embody Ascania with boyish charm and a sense of wonder that this youth has for the world around him. She managed to really sing every single line with precision, beauty, charm, and she was just so lovely as Ascania that I was in complete awe of her overall performance. She was able to make Ascania come alive in terms of his boyish nature, but at the same time, she also made him shine in terms of his loyalty to his father. I could definitely say that she is a very promising young singer, and she is just wonderful in roles like this, and I could definitely see her singing in a lot of the bigger, more lyric soprano roles in the near future. But for now, this superb light lyric soprano has made her mark wonderfully as Ascania. Then we go to Katia Piewek, who sang the role of Anna. Originally, I was quite skeptical of how Miss Piewek was going to sing Anna, because if you know me, I always prefer a full-bodied, deep, rich mezzo contralto singing this particular role. Voices like Heather Begg, Jocelyn Theillon, and even more recently, Ronita Miller. But I still have to give Katia Piewek loads of credit in terms of how she embodied Anna. She was able to really sing her role with such really fine and rich tones, and she had a sturdy stage presence. She managed to really navigate her music really well, and even though she doesn't have that much to sing compared to her sister Didon, I still have to give loads of credit to Katia Piewek for really embodying this role really well. Then we go to Iopas, sung by Markus Nikkenen, and my goodness, what a gorgeous timbre he has. I really love his high-flying lyric tenor voice that he was able to emit with such great musicality, youthfulness, and charm. And he just has a very pleasing timbre that was so addicting to listen to, and his stage presence was really dashing, and one can tell that he had a lot of fun with this particular character. He is yet another singer I would love to see a lot more, and I would also love for him to come over to the Deutsche Oper Berlin, or even to the Staatsoper im Schultheater, or even at the Komische Oper Berlin, because I could definitely tell that one of these days he might be performing in those opera houses, and if he does, I will definitely check him out. Hylas was sung by Bernhard Richter, and he does a very fine job with this particular role, and his voice was really soothing. He has that very soothing lyric tenor quality to his voice that is so charming, so captivating, and just so full of lovely tones that I was captivated by his performance. Andrew Harris, what more can I expect from this gentleman, was a very sturdy performer as the Greek chieftain. What I always love about Andrew Harris is his full-bodied basso voice, which he was able to emit with great nobility, charm, and just a lot of precision. And there was also some really great singing from the smaller roles, like we have Denis Villeneuve's superbly sung and full-bodied King Priam, Marta Swiderska's noble-sounding and really gorgeous Queen Hecuba, Bruno Vargas's stentorian and handsomely sung Mercure and Ghost of Hector, Sasha Emanuel Kramer's wonderfully tuned and very lyrical and extremely musical Elenus, Eun-Suk Jang's Soldier, which was superbly sung, and even the two sentinels of Andreas Kuppertz and Christian Bodenburg, and I have to give loads of credit for the two actors who performed the silent roles of Andromache and her son Astyanax, Katrin Striebeck and Leonard Rocha, who did a very fine job performing these two silent roles with a lot of grace and dignity. So overall, the singing found in this particular production of Les Troyens was really solid, with the absolute standouts being Thorsten Kerl, Elena Zhidkova, Anna Markarova, Kartal Karagedik, Aline Antza, Katia Piewek, and just a lot of the singers who managed to participate in this particular opera. I have to give them the greatest amounts of kudos I could ever give them, because they all did very well in my eyes. And the conducting done by Kent Nagano was really solid and decent all throughout, but at times it does tend to be a little bit on the pedestrian side. But I still have to give him loads of credit of how he was leading the orchestra and how he was even leading the chorus. Everyone went together, and it was a very great and unified collaboration between the conductor and everyone behind this particular production. So overall, everyone did solidly. Everyone went together and it was a really fine collaborative effort from everyone across the border. And for those of you who saw this particular production of Les Troyens at the Staatsoper Hamburg, what did you think of it? Did you love the entire production? Did you feel like there was a singer that stood out to you so much? Or did you feel unsatisfied of the overall execution? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for my review of the Artemis Quartet at the Elbphilharmonie. So until then, good night everybody.